It's not your job to worry about how your customers get their money or if they have no money. This is not your job. Your job is to sell them something they want, what they really, really want. Because if you don't, your competition are going to sell to them. And then when this happens, you are there like Waldo, sitting on the fence, wondering what happened and watching this cash walk past your window into your competitor's bank account. That's the truth. It's not about you and what you think. It's about your real customers, not your ideal customers. And your real customers, who and where do they want to hand over their cash to? It's either you or your competition. Who's doing the smarter job? No one cares what you think. When customers hand over their money to you, they want something for them. Which brings me to a very another important point about how money flows. The difference between want and need. And the difference between ideal and real customers. I've touched on this because several times already, because this is like the pinnacle of what niching is all about. The money is in the want, never ever the need. People buy something because they want something, not because they need something. Ideal customers are people that you want to sell to. Real customers are people who actually hand you the money. This is a big difference. This is understanding how money flows. And this is how you can make easy money in business. And in case you're thinking, I'm making this all up to sound clever, I'm going to give you two real examples of where trying to create an ideal avatar for your perfect customer just doesn't work. And very simply, you are not your customer. You can't guess on behalf of your customer. You will get it wrong every time. And this is the mistake. All starts with this ideal avatar rubbish and simply not following where the money is naturally flowing. So let's take an example. So this is one of the very first business clubs I used to run here on the Gold Coast. This was the first club I ever ran many years ago. This was at the Burley Heads, one of the restaurants there. And in this picture, there's some quite, I wouldn't say famous people. People have been with me a long time. There's John Gemmell, one of my business coaches, has been with me for 12 years. Tony Bloom, who you may have seen on my interviews, on my websites. He now runs a $100,000 business a year, passive income. He's been with me since the beginning. Steve, the plumber, who learned to do joint ventures, getting off the tools. And what we see is a guy called Vince. Now, Vince owned a hospitality company. It was focused on finance, selling finance solutions to the hospitality industry. He came to a couple of these events, and we had workbooks and notebooks, pretty much the stuff I'm teaching you guys now, except it's all online now. But back then, the guys would come, they'd do their workbooks and go back and try and build their businesses. And Vince was so impressed by the structure and all the workbooks, he came to me and said, can we put this in the system into restaurants? Because, there's a 96% failure of restaurants, and of the 4% who actually make it, very few actually make money. So I said, of course, we can adapt the system to any business. So let's give it a go. So what he did was he went to the Queensland Catering Association, which is the biggest association here in Queensland. They got at that time around 4,000 or 5,000 members. We presented this system to help go through a restaurant and make them profitable in the whole story. They loved it. They endorsed it. They promoted it to the whole database. They did a big launch. And we just thought, this is going to be absolutely the best thing that's hit this earth. And what happened? Nothing happened. We didn't even sell one. And the reason why is because in the restaurant industry, they desperately needed the solution. They were failing and going bankrupt, but they didn't want it. They didn't think they needed it. So there's this a classic story of who is your ideal customer of, restaurants and whatever it is. Well, none of those people wanted to hand over cash. So they were not our real customers. So that Vincent just had to go focus back on finance solutions. That's all they cared about. A new stove and a new fridge and a new pizza oven. That's all they worried about. Never mind if the business is going broke. They're not interested. That's what we call a non-lucrative niche. The second example I want to show you is here you see myself and my partner Gary. This was my first $800 I ever spent in my business. We had to put this was the first trade show we ever went to, and you can see the computers from Star Trek now. But that's what we used, and this little thing here was our point of sale system, trying to help businesses have customized software to improve their businesses. This was our big idea, that we were going to sell to the world and make millions. And what happened through this process was, for the first 14 to 18 months, we just didn't make any money. It was living hell. And many of you know the story, but I'm coming back to a very important point here. We tried to sell our idea to the world, and we tried and we tried and we tried and we tried, and we changed this and we changed that and we changed everything under the sun. The biggest problem was we were in a niche that just didn't have any interest in what we were trying to sell. Our product or offer was completely wrong. So what we did was we shifted and sifted our business, and I'm going to talk more about that in up and coming as we go through this webinar together. So what I said was one of the bonuses, I'm going to give you a one-page planner. So this is the first part of that. And what you see here is a step-by-step process of how you actually niche down. So this is a true example of Tony, the photographer, who used to come to my workshops. When I first met him, when you ask him, what do you do? Now he does photography. So again, that's a huge, broad niche, like sick men. So what I said, okay, well, how do you break this into those clusters or your pots? And so we sat down: school photos, family photos, food photography, pet photography, weddings, 21st, and women's boudoir. And then the next thing is, okay, well, how much pain do these people want to actually, or what is their problem with getting school photos, etc., etc. So we went through the list. Like school photos, there's not much pain there because most schools have got, they're tied up with the contracts. So customers not really interested. There's not a problem for them. So their desired level to pay is not there. So the money score is zero. So that's not a good leash for him to be in as just a general photographer. Family photos, yes, there was a pain to try and get the right person, this and that, the desire level a bit higher. But again, this is not such a big urgency. They really, really want it, but are they prepared to pay for it? Well, sometimes maybe. Food photography, again, with the restaurant industry, not really. There's just no money there. Pets was one thing that was emerging. Pictures of your dogs and cats and parrots and squirrels. Do people really want that? Not really. There's a couple of people. So again, that's not a really good niche. Weddings and 21st, well, again, this is where things start to pick up. People want a good wedding photographer. They want a great 21st photographer. They don't want anything stuffed up on these big special days. So the desire to have something more suddenly shoots up. They want a reputable photographer, an expert in the field, blah, blah, blah. So what is the money score? Well, that goes up. Of course, there's usually more competition. You always hear me say this. Wherever there's generally lucrative niches, there's lots more competition. That's where you've got to stand out, which we're coming to. So this was looking pretty healthy. And then what he said to me, and this is what you call following where the money goes, and you're going to see how you land up with this by simply listening to his customers. What happened with Tony? When he was selling all the stuff, he found that, particularly in the family environment, he was trying to pitch his family portraits and all this. The wife was usually the decision maker for this, the lady in the house. So I really do, I've got to get around to doing it, but next month, and money's tight, and my husband's overseas, and all the stories and carry on. But what they said was, when Tony said, well, I also do women's like glamour photos, the boudoir, which, is these pictures that make ladies look beautiful in the lingerie and roses and whatever they have. They suddenly said, oh my God, you know what? I think I'll buy that. So all the excuse of money and husbands and all the other story went out the window. Why? Because he had found the sweet spot. When you find the sweet spot, money just happens. And so what happened, his business went from the struggling for I think it was 8 years. He was just not making money. We went through the simple exercise together, and there was the money. And then what happened was, in these women's boudoir, they got these beautiful photographs of them that they were very proud. They went roaring around, showing everybody, the husband, the kids, and then the kids and husband say, well, that's nice, but what about us? So then he went back and did family photographs. So that's a true story, but it's a very powerful story. And it just shows you how simple it is if you just follow the process. Now, another example is my business. That one I showed you when we first started off. We eventually shifted and sifted from selling computer programs that no one wanted, no one cared about, to listing exactly like Tony, the photographer. Oh, we don't want family portraits right now, but we've got this woman's boudoir thing, which I'm very interested in. Our customers we were selling software to kept saying, don't want your software, but can you sell us a keyboard, a computer, a printer, blah, blah, blah. So that, but just naturally following where this money was flowing, we shifted into selling computers. But inside computers, that's a huge niche. And so these were these people that started potentially buying from us. Gamers, bargain hunters, large businesses, the small home office guys, and then families. And so if you broke all this down, gamers, there's no money in gamers. They all try and jippo things and get things for free and download cheats. So that there's no money for gamers. Bargain hunters, again, these people are not a pain in the ass. You don't want to, all they wanted to do was, what is their desire level? Desperate for getting the cheapest price. That's a huge driver. But what does that mean? Well, there's no money there if someone's hounding you for price every 5 minutes. So you don't want, in our environment, don't want to deal with that. Large businesses, again, there wasn't our kind of thing. They wanted corporate managers, huge support. So for us, that was just not right. Small offices, though, in this time in the 1990s, this was becoming a great thing. So there was a problem people wanted to solve. They wanted a computer for the home environment. There was a big desire and money was flowing there. So that was a niche that we started to tap into. But our huge breakthrough came from families. And this just naturally happening by listening to who are customers who wanted to buy from us the quickest and easiest. And I'm going to show you all this coming up, how we did all this. But the point I'm making, what I showed you in the very first few slides, is if you're not paying attention to this piece, forget about what you're doing. You're probably just not doing the right stuff. You're talking to the wrong people, or your offer is wrong. You want to do this exercise. So this was a huge pain problem in the 90s. I'm going to explain all the pain and how I got to the pain. But they had a big problem they wanted to solve. They wanted a solution that suited families. And their desire to get it was huge, because computers in the 90s was a big expense. It wasn't like today where you just throw in the bin and buy a new one. So that was a huge problem, and they were prepared to pay for the right solution. So my hot pot, my shifting and sifting, as we did for Tony here, you land up with your hot pot from your shifting and sifting, from your large niche into your clusters or your pots to who you think you're going to target. All right. It's a very simple process. So let's keep going. Right. So as a result, what happened here? And this is how you get more customers. You simply go to where the money's flowing. You've heard me repeat this many times. So we started off in that trade show, as I showed you, with $800, and nothing happened until we shifted and sifted, and we found where families were shopping. This was our first little shop. It didn't look like this in the beginning. And we started selling bundled solutions, which you see. I'm going to take you to this in a sec, which is part of your offer. And this business really started to take off. And we did $1 million in our second year. This is after struggling for 18 months. So this huge surge came off in the last 6 months because we finally had landed in that sweet spot. And then for the next 5 years, well, that grew to a $12 million business. That was just massive explosion. I'm going to take you through the entire process in a sec. So let's just stop for a second here. And let's just see, what are we actually looking at here? We are only talking about the niche right now. And the equation I showed you right in the beginning, We got your offer that we want to offer to your niche once you found the right niche. And then we come to your result where we analyze everything. And I'm going to show you how you do that in your workshop later. Now this is the problem with traditional marketing that everyone out there is doing. And it's the same stuff copied over and over and again. It just doesn't work. Most people are out there designing websites, sales pictures, the fanciest office, the new iPhone, marketing campaigns, they're doing Facebook ads. It's all a complete waste of time if you're fishing to a pond that has no fish in it. No one is going to buy from you, no one. And this is why you have to get your niche right in your business first before you do anything else. So